One. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, have we done it again? Yes, sir. Yes, man. We have done it again, all the way from the UK. We bring Paul Cowan to you, who has written this amazing book called Connecting with Clients. Let me just ask you a question here, folks. I'm going to look at you right in the camera for all those watching on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and listening on Castbox FM. First of all, share this, okay? All right, you need to share this with your friends and your enemies, okay? You just need to share it with both, okay? That's first of all. Let me tell you about connecting with clients. If you have clients, all right, and I know like 99.999% of you do, or if you're in a relationship of any kind, you need to read this book. That includes 100% of you. And let me tell you why. First of all, relationships matter, not just in our personal life, but in our professional life. And we either do them well or we don't do them well. And either we know what we're doing or we don't know what we're doing, or for the most part, we think we know what we're doing, but we really don't know what we're doing. Paul Cowan is answering those questions for you so that you can connect with your clients on a much stronger level. Listen, this book is so good because it is a book that will get you more referrals. It is a book where you're going to connect with your clients in a way that you never connected with them before. It is a way to get clients. It is really, really powerful, and you're going to love the book. You're going to love him. He's in the UK, and he has this beautiful voice, and I got a man crush. What can I say? It's awesome. Listen, so you know what? We're going to get to him in just a second. Before we do that, let's do what we do every week, right? And I walk you through the 4 areas of your life, right? We're 4-part people: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. And we need to be working on ourselves every day, because the truth is, if we're not growing, we're dying. It's just the truth. If any of you are aging, which is all of us, you start to realize pretty quickly that if you're not taking care of your body will take care of you in a hurry. But this is also true mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have to be working on it. So let's take a look physically on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being 10, and you're talking about your training and physical area. How would you rate yourself on that scale when it comes to eating right, getting enough exercise, getting enough sleep, and drinking enough water? How would you rate yourself out there? Would you say 5, which is average? Were you below average? Maybe 4, 3.5, or maybe you're really good. You're doing all those things really well. Maybe you're 7. The number does not matter as much as that's your starting point, and then what do you do to improve it? Okay, that's the key here. All right. So if you're 3.5, we're not chastising you for being a 3.5. We're saying, okay, you're 3.5. What can you do to change it? Do you need to eat? Do you need to eat a little bit better? Do you need to get a little more sleep? Do you need to drink a little more water? Do you need to get some more exercise? Right? That's all. And then work on it. Right? Okay. So you got your first number. That's your physical number. Second number is the mental number. And you know what? Paul's going to talk about that we have 2 halves of the brain. We have a right side of the brain, which is a bit more creative, and then we have the left side of the brain, which is a bit more logical. And we really need to be working on both halves of the brain. I say it all the time. Don't be a mental loafer. Don't just sit on your couch and let things come at you. You need to be active participant in your mental growth. And part of that can be reading a book like this one. But also there's another thing here too, right? I mean, you can do other things to enhance both halves of your brain. Take up a foreign language, learn an instrument, right? Do things to enhance both halves of your brain. The reason why that's so important is because you need to be working on yourself professionally and personally, and we need to be working on our wisdom and our knowledge and our understanding of the world and the things around us and what we do. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself in terms of your mental growth? Right? Same scale. 1's miserable, 10's outstanding. Right? All right, so you got 2 numbers. Third number is emotional, right? And Paul talks about it in the book, and we are so much on the same page with this. The emotional element of your growth is really 2 parts. One is, how well are you able to control your emotions under stress, pressure, and being tired or hungry? Right? Because we do have a choice in our emotional intelligence, personally. And I'm not saying it's easy, but the truth of the matter is you can choose which emotion that you want to have at any given time. You do not have to react. I used to tell my psychology students, I used to say, you know what, you could kick me in the shin. I actually have a number of responses I can make. I don't have to give you just one. Same is true in our own personal emotional intelligence, in that we can choose. So how are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? The second part is, how are you able to understand and tap into the emotions of others? And sometimes what that means is that we need to expand our emotional vocabulary, right? Sometimes our emotional vocabulary is not big enough, and so that we have these very large generalizations of our emotions rather than finding the subtleties of each emotion. And so how would you say you're doing in that area on a scale of 1 to 10? Right? Right. So you got 3 numbers now, right? And then the fourth area is the spiritual area. And the thing about spiritual area is this: if you remove the physical, the mental, and the emotional, whatever's left is spiritual, pretty much. Because the truth of the matter is, we have faith in something, we believe in something, we run to something that we can't see, we believe in things we can't see. And we go, well, no, I don't know. You do. We all do. I mean, if you're going to take a trip 2 weeks from now, you don't see it, but you believe you're going to do it, right? So you have faith. Well, if you have faith, that's a spiritual thing, right? I mean, do you believe in love? Actually, Cher sang that song, but if you believe in love, the truth of the matter is, right? I mean, right? Something you can't see, but you have faith in it, right? Then we all run to something when we're in the midst of chaos in hopes that it will, reduce it, whether that's God or meditation or nature or whatever it may be. How's it working? What do you need to do to change it? What do you need to do to enhance it? Right? And give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. And those are your 4 numbers. And right, you think of those 4 numbers as the legs of a chair. If the legs of the chair are uneven, you know what happens? Your posture is bad and you're not doing yet your best. At the same time, if the legs of the chair are too low, you can't sit at a normal table and eat. And speaking of someone who has his legs at the right height, his name is Paul Cowan. He is a relationship specialist who had a successful career in leading international advertising agencies, then opened up his own agency. As a psychotherapist, he worked with individuals and couples and consulted with teams and organizations. Specializing in client relationships, he works internationally to facilitate change between agencies and their clients. He co-founded the Client Relationship Consultancy and the Customer Relationship Consultancy. His new book, Connecting with Clients for Stronger, More Rewarding, and Longer Lasting Client Relationships, is available now at stores near you. So please welcome to the show, everyone, and welcome for the first time to A New Direction. Paul, welcome to A New Direction.
Thank you so much, Jay. That's some introduction. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. The book is outstanding. I told you before the show started how much I really enjoyed this book, and I think it's really important that as you and I talk about the book, I think that people need to understand it does not matter what business that you're in, whether it's B2B or B2C. The principles here that you espouse in these vignettes, because these aren't long chapters, these are short vignette style chapters. And it's a very fast read, I have to be honest with you. But each one is so powerful and stands on its own. And I think it's really important for people to really understand that you've put a lot into this book, and you in so doing, there's just it's a fire hose of information. So I think it's awesome. So let's just start right into the book, and let's talk about one of the chapters I felt was really helpful was Aviate, Navigate, Communicate, Managing More in Less Time. And so I think we kind of understand that, aviates, keep flying the aircraft, navigates, flying the right direction, avoiding obstacles, communicating, confirm with the air traffic controllers. But how does that apply to connecting with clients?
So, well, I think it's about each one of us individually. There are so many people that I meet and have met both in organizations, big organizations, and people who are self-employed, trying to be their own entrepreneurs, that somehow get overwhelmed by all the tasks coming at once and getting lost in the detail and not being able to sort out what's the real priority. What are the things that I really have to do now versus the things that maybe I could defer a bit? And giving themselves a sense of agency, being in control, and giving themselves a sense of there's a possibility that however big this thing I'm trying to do is, and these other things, And all these interruptions, they could be from small clients or customers or suppliers that are not delivering or delivering. All of that, along with dealing with the bank and everything else, can really seem a massive load. And so when I've been working with one-to-one with individuals that have expressed this terrible demand on their lives and the way it affects them, then what I remembered was when I was learning to fly, that notion of aviate, communicate, and navigate. And so I explain that actually this is a very, very good way of separating out tasks. There are the tasks that you absolutely have to do in order to keep the business flying. Those are the things that you must do right now. And those are things that are business critical. And that gives people, and nothing else goes in except, in your list of aviate. Just those things you've got to absolutely have to do. The rest can go a bit further down the chain. The next level is this notion of navigation, of knowing where you are and where you're going. And actually that is the next sort of really important issue. And these, often the tasks that people begin to assemble in here, are the ones which are not burningly critical like right now, but the ones that actually are important in the next week, in the next month. So that's telling us where we're going and what to avoid and so forth. And that technique of separating immediately begins to help. And then communication, that's whoever else, the stakeholders and everybody else that we need to involve. And it's a very simple way of helping us to self-soothe. And I find that really has worked really, really well for some people. Now, of course, the other way of thinking about the tasks, is for some people that works really well, and for others they like to get a bit more detailed about this. And I think Covey and Covey's quadrant is fantastic, and that works well for many people. And the notion of dividing up a page into 4 quadrants, and simply in one box I put in the top right corner is what's important. And they're the things that are strategically really important to me. So I'm working on a training program from this book that goes in there, and it's going to be a long-term thing. It's going to be in that box for the next year, one way or another. And there'll be other things that are really important, whether the lease or the renewal of the contracts for various people. But then I'm going to have in the box next to that, left-hand side, some of the urgent issues that come out of the important issues. These are urgent and important. And here, that could be the contracting the supplier that's going to help me with developing the training program. But I need to do that tomorrow. If I don't do that tomorrow, I'm going to miss the deadline. So there are all things that are urgent and important. And that again, that separation is really good. But of course, not everything is urgent and important. And so, we then begin to get a little more refined. And often we end up doing stuff that actually is just occupying time that would be really, really precious and add stress. So the next part of the quadrant for me, and I put it on the bottom left corner, is urgent, not important. And these are the things I can get really distracted about. I really happen to like old cars. And if I'm not really careful, I can lose a lot of time looking at car auctions in America and everywhere else. But they're not important by any means. Maybe phoning one of my daughters or whatever it is. So they become urgent and they become really pressing, and I can lose a lot. But so they're urgent, but they're not important. And then the final box is not important and not urgent. And those really are the time burners. And by separating our tasks, and I find with other people, separating their tasks into those 4 quadrants, or using aviate, navigate, communicate, either which way, and there are other systems as well, really is helpful for managing time, priority, and creating a sense of focus in life. And if you're a small business owner, you've got lots on your plate, that can really give you a sense of feeling in control. And by the way, I like to use the word active rather than busy. Many people tell me they're busy. For me, busy seems a bit like, well, busy, we can all get busy, but if we're active, if we tell ourselves we're active, again, it gives a sense of more of purpose, more of somehow being in control. So anyway, either of those time systems are really wonderful on a day-to-day basis.
You know, I think it's really interesting that, you know, you kind of start the book kind of in this realm with, you know, aviate, navigate, communicate, and then you move on to best boss, worst boss, and emotional intelligence. And I think there is a sense that I get when I was reading through these early chapters at the book that you kind of have this way of saying we need to kind of be aware of ourselves first before we can be aware of our clients, because am I getting that right?
That's absolutely right, Jay. Unless we really know ourselves, unless we really understand ourselves, then we can't manage ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't, and actually, we are our biggest resource.
Right.
And so knowledge of the self and then management of the self, exactly as you were describing in the introduction to this program, is exactly where the competitive advantage lies. If I really know myself, and if I can therefore act in the best way that I know how, really think and feel appropriately and respond appropriately, then that is a really good foundation for my relationship with others. Now, what we do know about emotional intelligence is that if I know about myself, I'm self-aware, I'm much more likely to be able to manage myself. If I manage myself, I'm much more likely to be open to you and to be able to understand you. And with all those three things in place, I'm much more likely to be able to help to manage the relationship between us. Now, managing the relationship between us, if we get that right, that's fantastic. And most of the time I see when I was acting as a couples therapist or working in organizational teams, it's mostly because people are not sufficiently self-aware. They're not aware of their impact on everybody else, and they're not aware that they're actually messing up their relationships. They're not managing them well. And it costs such a lot of time and effort. It's such a waste. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And the study of the self and of other people is absolutely fascinating. And if we get that right, boy, we can start to really have strong relationships. And that just drops to the bottom line. Our workload goes down, our margins go up, our happiness goes up. Certainly my wife is happy when I'm really investing in the relationship.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, I think for many people who are CEOs, own their own business that listen to the show, or even salespeople, I would say, and I have a number of salespeople out there who listen to the show, you need to be aware of your own issues and your own stuff. You may have some success doing what you're doing, but you may be completely unaware of things that you're doing that could actually make you even better. Because then what happens is you talk about relationship management, that relationship management involves using our emotion, at least you said this, relationship management involves using our emotional understanding to interact with others, whether that's influence, coach and mentor, or conflict management, and the list goes on, inspirational leadership, teamwork, etc. Those pieces, though, before we can even get to that, I gotta know what my flaws are. I need to know not just my strengths. I need to know my weaknesses. I need to know how I'm communicating, what my communication style is. There's a number of factors, right?
Absolutely. And if I begin to know myself, I have the chance of actually having more behavioral flexibility. If I've got more behavioral flexibility, that means I can work more effectively with a much wider range of individuals, either in my team or with clients. It just gives me more opportunities. And if I stay rigidly in one pattern of behavior and approach, it narrows. I'm stuck with that type of client base, or I'm stuck with that type of employee. And yeah, it's so why wouldn't you want to develop yourself? It really is. Yeah.
Well, it's the key. I think when I look at it, it's like this is the key to connecting with clients. Is you got to start with you. Speaking of which, the book is entitled "Connecting with Clients," written by Paul Cowan, who joins us from the UK, and you're listening to him here on A New Direction, folks. I have two great sponsors on A New Direction. One of them is Epic Physical Therapy, and it doesn't matter if you're recovering from an injury or surgery, or you're suffering everyday aches and pains, or having difficulty performing activities of daily living, or whether you're a professional athlete and you're just looking to improve what you're doing on the field or the ice or the pitch, whatever it may be. Epic Physical Therapy will provide you with a customized treatment plan tailored to your individual needs. Listen, they understand the need to treat the entire body as a functional whole, not just your symptoms or your injury. So when you're ready for your epic relief, ready for your epic recovery, ready for your epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. For over 35 years, she has been in the real estate business and has been at the top of her game. By the way, it's almost unheard of that for 35 years you can continue to be at the top of the real estate game. How does she do it? Well, she stays on the bleeding edge of technology. She stays on the bleeding edge of what's going on in the world of real estate. But more importantly, she stays on the bleeding edge of relationships. That's what she does, because she understands that at the very basic fundamental level, it's all about the relationships. And so she, over the course of 35 years, has developed and created relationships with people all over the world to help others sell or buy their home. So when you're ready to sell or buy your home, start with Linda Craft and Team. You can learn why by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my new friend, Paul Cowan, his book, Connecting with Clients. The secondary title is For Stronger, More Rewarding, Longer Lasting Client Relationships. And we are just digging into a few of the beginnings of the book, I would say, some of the small vignettes. We're going to talk, Paul, I want to talk about Brilliant Basics, which is the name of this little chapter. And you basically say there are 5 brilliant basics. Delivery on time, accurate work, manage expectations at every stage, do everything as promised, and make sure that your communication is clear and open. Is that it?
That's it. And what we know, because in my business, we track the emotional temperature of relationships between clients and advertising agencies in 92 different countries, in 100 and something different agency offices. We've got 750,000, I think, bits of data. We know that when 2 things are in place, one, the emotional temperature of the relationship is doing well. In other words, the relationship is being managed and brilliant basics are being applied. Clients are overjoyed. So I think that there's a really interesting thing there about, brilliant basics. It's what we all expect. When we have a contractor in, we expect all of those things to happen. And, I think those are, and it was my colleague in Australia who penned that piece together of those basics. I don't think one is more important than the other. And I'm glad you went through the review list, because I don't have my copy of the page in front of me. But James repeats that as a mantra to all our clients. And he really does get his message through. And when they deliver, we can see that in the client satisfaction. And that is fantastic.
Yeah, I think, sometimes as businesses, we can over-focus on one of these. So like you could focus on delivery on time, right? That's great, but if your work isn't accurate, does it matter, right? No. And you could be great at having accurate work and delivery on time, but you haven't managed the expectations at every stage. And you could be delivery on time, accurate work, manage the expectations, but you haven't done everything as you promised to do them. And then it could be that you've got all 4 of those, but your communication is just horrible. And you make a point in this book. You said all of this is binary. It's a yes or no. And if you're in doubt, over communicate.
and over communicate is the most important thing, by the way. In any relationship, when a void opens up and the client begins to wonder what's going on, are my expectations going to be met? Will it be there on time? Will it not be there? Will it be exactly right? When those question marks start to occur, that's when there's a concern. And when a concern begins to open up, if anything is not exactly as promised, then it becomes a negative experience. So I think, and it's a very clever algorithm. And sometimes I get people to create little columns, and I ask them to put themselves in their client's shoes and rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. How would their clients rate them on those different dimensions? And that's by the way, for anybody running a small business, just do that. Put the across the bottom of the page, put the key components there, and just rate yourself if you were a client. Now, if you've got anything less than a 10, it's a no. You need to be delivering. It's brilliant basics, or it's not brilliant. So it's a really good way of thinking about, my business and where are our strengths and where are our weaknesses? Where are the times we fall down? Because that's going to be the consistent bugbear. But importantly, communication is there's a thing in all relationships, which is, and I refer to this in the Sound Relationship House, there's an emotional reserve or tank. And when we have a strong relationship, things can go wrong. We won't always be able to deliver brilliant basics, however much we try to. Things inevitably don't always go to plan. That's just the human condition, right? But if we have a strong emotional reserve, and if we over communicate, we will be forgiven for those times when things haven't gone 100%. And so that's the bit about over communication. It's really building up that emotional reserve and making sure that it stays in top right, really as full as possible. And by the way, the same applies with couples. The emotional bank account that is so important. It takes out the bumps in the road between couples and between clients and their suppliers. Really, really critical.
At the end of each vignette, I want to point this out to people who are going to buy this book, and you really do need to buy this book, by the way, Connecting with Clients. He being Paul, has top tips that he puts at the end of each chapter. And remember, these are very short chapters, sometimes, just a couple pages long. Some are a little bit longer, maybe 5 or 6 pages, but they're really pretty short. And then he gives tips. And one of the tips in this chapter that you had in Brilliant Basics, and I thought it was really, really critical because you should stop us in the tracks. And you said, if the client is not responding positively to your ideas, you're probably missing the problem.
Correct. And that is true of, almost anything. If you're getting a negative and you get it more than once, you've really got to wonder what's going on. And by the way, this is also about email traffic. If you start getting lots of email traffic, that's the time to pick up the phone. You always got a clue. If you think, the client isn't responding right to this. Okay, well, you've got to question, why is that? What's our part in that? Not what's the client's part necessarily. And that is really crucial. And all of this is about turning, the searchlight back on the stuff. What is it that I've missed? What is it that we're not doing? What is it that we didn't hear? Because if you pick it up now, you'll get a happy client. If you don't, you won't. And the reputation will be negative. By the way, there's one thing I just want to add in.
Sure.
And I did write about this in the book. We tend unconsciously to avoid difficult situations or people that don't really like us, right? And we are drawn to those people that we really like. So guess what? Clients that feel good about us, we tend to call them a lot. We tend to have a high level of communication between us and them. And the clients that don't really like us that much or don't rate us that highly are the ones that somehow we never get around to calling them. We can start off in the morning and we go, yeah, I must call that guy. But somehow it doesn't happen, and then it gets worse and worse. So here's a tip for everybody. I like to give tips. I think this is, it's part of the ethos of the book as well. Is something I learned from a very bright guy, Jim Kelly, and what he got me doing, and I've taken it from him, is he got me to write down a list of all my clients by name and in descending order. So the ones at the top I really liked a lot. And Dennis, by the way, I can still remember Dennis. This is many, many years ago. Dennis was at the top. And then all the way down, I can't remember the people at the bottom, by the way. I absolutely cannot remember. But Jim's thing was, okay, so in the morning, go into the office, reverse the list, and now start calling people that were on the bottom. They're now on the top. And don't get distracted. They need your call. Now, I would invite anybody to do that. And it really will do two things. One is you'll feel a lot of stress relief, because things we avoid, they go round and round and round, and they occupy our mind, and they become more and bigger because they're just here.
I think are you still there, Paul?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Go ahead.
We just had a bit of a line interference there. And I've totally forgotten what I was going to say.
Well, we were talking about how we tend to avoid things.
So when we avoid things, it becomes more and more of a pressure, and the consequence is that actually that just adds to our feeling of anxiety, and these tasks begin to build up, and we don't address them, and then the relationships become more and more problematic, and they cost us more money. They're more difficult to run. So by actually putting the people that we really don't want to talk to at the top of our list and doing it, we get a sense of satisfaction. We feel we're making progress. And if there is bad news, we can deal with it immediately. And I think another thing is, I would say, always walk towards a problem. If you walk towards a problem, the moment you know you've got one, it's going to be way quicker and easier to sort out. Anyway, that's just from a couple of bits of the book.
Yeah, you know what? It is hard for us because we kind of just hope that the problem's going to go away. If we don't do anything with it, it'll kind of resolve itself. But in the business environment, I have never seen problems just kind of erode and go away, and everybody's happy.
No, absolutely. There's about 9% of the population that will have a greater propensity to walk into the problem and sort it out. But for the majority of people, we tend to go into avoidance. And that is no way to make the most of your business. That's no way to make sure you've got a great reputation, and there's no way to enhance your future sales. So, yeah, hit it hard, make it fun, do the reverse telephone list, and crack on.
Yeah, but I think this is true because you've done personal therapy, relationship therapy. When to get on the other side of the problem when you're in a relationship, personally, right? You've got to attack the problem. Because you can't get onto the other side of the relationship. And so I don't know why people want to think that the business relationship is going to be any different than that, because the truth of the matter is you each have expectations of each other. There is numeration being exchanged between each other. So there's a transaction. There is a hope that there's going to be benefit from each other, right? So if there is a problem, you need to address it as if you had a problem in any relationship, because to avoid it's just not going to work. To be silent, what happens when people are in relationships and they remain silent? They drift further and further apart, and then they get angry and resentful, and then what do? They separate.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, because that
Right.
first sort of distance that might come between a client and a supplier, a client and a contractor or whoever, it might not be that big, but it's, unless we jump on it, it can open up, and we can allow it to fester. In a way, so often it's difficult to know what point do we get into action. And I would say that telephone list technique is a really good one for just, you can't just using gut instinct,
Right.
or just, okay, what do I feel? Yeah,
Right.
he's at the bottom. I'm not sure why he's at the bottom, but I'm going to pick up the phone to him.
Right. Good for you. Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the chapters is entitled "Call Your Clients Every Day and Keep the Other Agencies Away." It's one of your chapters titles. And I thought about that for a second, and I thought, you don't really mean we should call our clients every day, do you?
Well, back in the day, Bill Muirhead, who was my boss, did advocate we called our clients every day. But of course, those were the days when there was a lot of stuff moving fast. But I think the principle is stay close to your clients. That's the most important thing. I have clients across the world, and they will call their clients, their senior contacts, like once a week or once every 2 weeks, and they'll have a routine and they'll have an agreement. That's the routine, and they'll stick to it, and that is really, really important. And if I have a particular project running, I will set up a cycle of calls so that I stay in touch with that particular client, and then I know what's going on, and they know more than anything that I really care. I'm thinking about their business. If I do have ideas, then I will be pinging them emails or thoughts on a much more regular basis. And if I think for any reason during a busy period I need to call a client every day, I am going to call a client every day. I over communicate. I'd rather somebody say, look, can you give us a break today? And no, because they know that I'm really looking after their business. I really, really do care. And that communication of care is important.
Right. Speaking of communication, you have a chapter entitled "Communication in the Virtual World: The Impact on Us and Our Client Relationships." And you make a quote right away in that chapter. It says, "Communication over the internet is just not as effective or easy as it is when we are face to face." And talk a little bit about, because we are doing so much more since the pandemic, especially, right?
Yeah,
we're doing so much more virtually, but it's just not the same, is it?
It's absolutely not the same. I mean, mankind has not developed over millennia to have relationships with little pictures on a screen. That's not the way that we're wired. It's not the way that we have developed. Humanity's developed to have relationships face to face. And the consequence of the way that actually humanity is and human beings have developed is that, in terms of the information exchange that goes on between two people when they're face to face, enormous amount of it, 55% or so, we don't want to be too accurate with these figures, is from body language. And body language means taking in the whole body. And we unconsciously know, or out of awareness, I should say, notice the speed of breath, the slight movement of the body, which carries some meaning. It could be the shrug of the shoulders, the way the foot moves, the tap of the leg, the movement of the hand. All of those things we're taking in out of awareness and add enormous amount of, so over half, meaning in communication. We can't do that online. You can just see the top of my shoulders right now, and you can see some pictures on the wall, but that's it. Now, the other thing you can't see is the micro expressions on my face, which carry a huge amount of information. And so micro movements, we out of awareness, we pick up, we decode, and we can tell when people are getting tense, when they're bored. We can look at eye movement, And all of those bits of information are really helpful in terms of communication, whether you're saying, I like you, I hate you. We really don't get any of that, and despite the fact we're living a science fiction world right now, we're communicating online between the two of us. I think that's amazing. But then, of course, if we think about the way broadband works, and that is to bunch up the signal and condense the signal in terms of frequency. You can't hear the full range of my voice. I can't hear the full range of your voice. So now another 30+% disappears or is eroded in terms of communication. That's about how much, 38% thereabouts, is from the tone of voice and the intonation, that delivery and the emphasis. By the way, right now I am using, so science says, or so the researchers say, about 15% more energy in my voice, and so are you. So it gets very tiring. So anyway, you can't really hear that the exact meaning I'm putting behind the words and the phrases. So that leaves us with roughly, 8-something%, the words themselves. Well, words are very slippery. And so immediately we've got the potential for lots of ambiguity. So these are the challenges. Now, that makes communicating very hard work, particularly when you're doing it day in, online. And so the consequence is that we're not communicating fully effectively. We aren't really able to build relationships. They're more functional. It's a bit like email plus. It's better than nothing, but it's not great. And that's why when we do meet in offices, rather than over the internet, we have such a sort of joyous and open response, and there's so much more communication. People are getting together. I went to my office, my company's office today. People are getting back into London, and they're doing so in these, because they can have a much more effective piece of communication when they're together. So it is a real challenge, and relationship building is very, very difficult because we're not able to communicate effectively with each other. It's a poor mimic of being face to face. Now, of course, the other thing that goes on is that when we have meetings, for example, after a certain while, we get tired and it becomes difficult to concentrate. And it's difficult to concentrate because if I'm focused on you the whole time as a small little image, I'm not doing what I do normally, which is to look away, look around, get a bit of refreshment, able to stimulate myself, stand up, get a coffee, all that kind of stuff, which is refreshing. And so it's really important, if for anybody listening, if you are working online on calls, at least every 50 minutes, take a break. At least every 50 minutes, ideally longer. It's interesting. Therapists in the UK, generally we work for 50 minutes and then have 10 minutes to take notes. Now, the guidance is double that 10 minutes, have a 20-minute break between clients, not just to write notes, but to take a refresh, to go outside, to recharge. And we just don't deal with, or my wife particularly, she's practicing as a psychotherapist, will not deal with so many clients because it's too demanding. So forgiving ourselves and to allow ourselves the opportunity not to be online all the time. So what do I say to our clients is pick up the phone from time to time. You get a much better bandwidth, much better quality of speech. You're now one-to-one genuinely, as much as you can be. If you can't be there in person, pick up the phone from time to time. Use the cell phone, use the landline if there is one. Take breaks, make it small chunks of work, and just recognize it's very, very tough in terms of communication. And as soon as you can meet with the clients face to face, even if it's a kickoff meeting or a midpoint meeting in a project or an endpoint meeting. But going in and meeting them is fundamentally important when you can do so.
The book is entitled Connecting with Clients. His name is Paul Cowan. He's joining us from the UK, and you're listening to him here on A New Direction. Folks, listen, my two sponsors I talk about all the time, Epic Physical Therapy and Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Listen, Epic Physical Therapy facilities, there are more than one, They really do offer the most advanced top of the line equipment, like the anti-gravity treadmill takes the pressure off your joints so you can run, the Normatec compression sleeves, which are fantastic because for people like me who are aging, a little bit of compression actually goes a long way, and being able to do what you want to do athletically. Game Ready is awesome as well. Listen, they're trained, certified, the most comprehensive, cutting edge treatments like blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, cupping, just to name a few. So listen, when you're ready for your epic relief, your epic recovery, and your epic results, start with epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Listen, she has been doing real estate for 35 years, and her first clients still come to see her today. And the reason why they continue to come to see her today, 35 years later, is because they recognize that it's the relationship. And she created a relationship. She continues to nurture it on a regular basis. Relationships require nurture. Okay, I mean, that's the thing that Paul Cowan talks about in his book. You have to manage expectations. You have to communicate. You have to over communicate. You have to ask the hard questions from time to time. That's what Linda Craft does. That's why her clients say that she's a legend of customer service. So listen, when you're ready for your real estate, whether you're buying or selling, when you're ready to do anything in real estate, start with Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Paul Cowan and his book, Connecting with Clients. And you enjoying it so far, Paul?
I am. Really good. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. You know what? Here's your chapter. What a great lead in. What a great segue. The chapter is entitled, Everything is Okay. Is your client telling the whole truth? Diagnostic Inquiry. And on page 57, you say, here's the 3 words you start with on page 57. We all lie.
We do. We're socialized not to tell the truth. I'm afraid that happens really early on in life. I'm sure I'm not alone in the experience of when I said to my mum, grandma has got hairs on her chin, And as a young kid, I was told, you can't say that. You cannot say that. And it starts really early on. My daughter, who is a truth teller, said to the teacher at school when she was like about 5. So the teacher said to my daughter, "Is that your mummy over there, the one with the blonde hair?" And my daughter said no. And later on, the teacher came up and said, "That is your mummy over there." My daughter said, "It's not real blonde, right?"
Oh, Lord help. Lord help you.
Yeah. That my oldest daughter is a truth teller. But it is that kind of socialization when she was told, no, you can't say that about your mum, And we go along to get along in this world, to keep our friends and to build our relationships. We tend, most of us, not to be fully open, honest, and direct with them. And that is a way of us staying in the tribe, our friendship group, our group at school, our college, our work group. We're not going to say to the guy over the next desk or wherever, I really think the way you do something is loathsome, or whatever it is. So the problem then is that within an organizational context, there may be other issues that actually our clients don't really want us to know. And so we're actually not dealing with the truth any of the time, because our clients will probably just nod along to us. If it's not a big issue, they'll probably just suck it up and say, okay, that's fine, whatever. And so getting to the truth is really, really difficult. Most people will say to a client, well, how are we doing? And a client will mostly say, well, everything's pretty good, maybe a bit here or a bit there or whatever. But that probably is not the truth. So the simple way, and by the way, Diagnostic Inquiry, where do we get diagnostic from? In the UK, our doctors, and they're part of a national health service, so we don't actually pay for that time. We pay for a part of our taxes. They don't have much time. They have to diagnose us in less than 10 minutes these days. It was 12, I believe it's now down to 10. And so we walk in and they've got 10 minutes to sort out what's the real issue. And so diagnostic inquiry comes from the process that a doctor will go through. A doctor, if you won't go in and say, oh, I've got a pain in my arm, they're unlikely just to give you some pills. They're going to say, okay, how long has it been there for? How hard is it? How painful is that? Where exactly is the pain? At what time of day? Did anything happen just beforehand? Et cetera, et cetera. And it's those kind of questions that really get under the skin of an issue that we can do with our clients. And all you need to do is to start by saying, Mr. Client, I'm really interested in your experience of us.
Mm.
And then silence. Most of them are going to go, I don't know what you mean. You just say again, tell me about your experience of us. What are your impressions? And by asking them a big question like that and listening, and that's the important thing, listening to what they say and what they don't say. And you've probably got a checklist in what you're expecting them to say. You just hold it there in your head. But in the meantime, whatever they do say, if it's a complaint, ask them, well, okay, so we didn't deliver that on time. What are the consequences of that? Because what you want to know, what are the complaints and the problems, and how important were they? Because if there is an issue, you want to go for the ones that actually there was an important issue, that was really painful for them. And now you can begin to list out what are the negatives. And you can decide later on, well, what am I going to do about that? But before you close the conversation, and by the way, I would never say solve the problem there and then. Because that'll sound like a quick fix. Always leave that by saying, you've raised some really important points. I'd like 24 hours. I'd like a week. I'm going to think about this and I'll come back to you with some ideas about how we can put this right. But you always want to leave somebody in a conversation like that with some good stuff. So ask them, what have been the good things about what we've done for you, the way we're working together? Tell me more about that. What else comes to mind? Now, by provoking their memories of all the good things, and anybody can find something good to say, right? They are reprogramming their minds. The last thing that they hear themselves talking about is you positively. So in a way, it's like cleansing a wound and then opening a wound, cleansing a wound, and starting to get it to heal quite quickly. And you haven't done anything. You just asked questions and listened. And now you have the opportunity, if there is an issue, to go back again and lay out some recommendations. Even if you know what you're going to do in the very first meeting, don't say it down there because it just seems like a quick fix. Mm. And so diagnostic inquiry can be a really powerful way of understanding what it's like for your clients to work with you and a quick way to identify negatives and resolve issues quickly. Do it regularly. Your clients will love you and they will stay with you.
I love that. I really do. I know that we're getting short on time, but and there's so many things I want to address, and I can't get to them. But one of the things I do want to address, because I thought this was very powerful, was the parent, adult, or child ego states between the business and the client. Because I know we only have a few minutes, and I'm going to ask you to do a quick summary of this.
Wow.
But these ego states that we have between client and us are incredibly important to resolving some of these trust issues.
They are. One quick thing on the way there. I just want to say there are only two problems in any relationship: problem A and problem B. Problem A is the task at hand, what you spend your time on. Problem B is the relationship. The client's experience of you of problem A is always mediated by their feelings, which is problem B. So this is really important. Within that, ego states lies. So there are three, according to Eric Bowen, three ego states. The parental ego state, which on a personal level is how I experience my parents or guardians and older influences when I was a young kid. Then the child ego state, which is me as a young person. It's the younger self. The parental ego state comes in two expressions. The nurturing parent, which is me, with my team. I'll say, hey, well done, guys. That's great. Fantastic. Or the critical parent, hey, I've told you to do that 5 times. Why didn't you do that? Et cetera, et cetera. And then the child ego state at the bottom, because they are in a stack, comes in free child. That's me playing, or on a Friday night with the guys in the bar, I'll say, hey, let's go and have a beer and we'll have a laugh. And we do have a laugh and we'll joke. And that's us in free child. The adapted child is when I've made a mistake. I feel small and insignificant, just as I did when I said, oh, why has Granny got hairs on her lip? I was corrected for that. So those have got lots of emotional attachments too. In the middle is the adult. The adult has no emotional associations with it. The facts are the facts. We're in this room. There are 2 of us on a call. You're there. I'm here. There are no emotions here. Now, what goes on, if we can think about us as 2 individuals, is that those 2 ego states are running all of the time. And all our working experience. And they play out in a particular way. So when things go wrong, if something goes wrong with, and this is from personal experience, when I was working in that agency, if we messed up with a client on a presentation, and the client started to get angry or reactive about it, I would get apologetic. And of course, I'm there. He's moving from his critical parent. You did not do this. You did not deliver on time, or whatever it was. From my own personal position, I am now shifted down into an adapted child ego state. It's my fault. I feel guilty. We did it wrong. And so I tend to apologize. Naturally, I apologize. Now, the problem now, and I say, well, we'll come back and we'll fix it and we'll do whatever we can. And we go back and we meet with the client and we say to the client, I'm really sorry about this. We're really sorry. We've done our best in the time available. The problem with that is I am still now in the child ego state. And the impact on the client is I'm only going to trigger off that critical parent again because I'm not in the adult to adult ego state. I'm trying to do this in a real quick time, Jay. That's how you set it up.
Yeah.
So I unconsciously trigger off a critical response. I then get back in. I'm then forced by that critical response into a child ego state. And I go back to my office and I say, we can't satisfy this guy. He's impossible. Right? Meanwhile, he's saying they're terrible. They just don't deliver on time. Had I gone back and said, Mr. Client, what we've noticed is that the original brief maybe had these issues associated with it, which we did not recognize. We've now addressed these. We believe this now represents the right solution, or whatever it is. I'm coming from a totally different place. I'm now coming from an adult place, and I'm going to draw him into that adult place. And now we can have a clean conversation. If I'm not very careful, though, if I get into that child state, that child ego state, I'm going to keep him in the critical parent ego state. And sooner or later, we're going to part company because it's just not going to work. That's the quickest I can do a simple.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful because I think what people need to understand is what state are you in, and I think a lot of times we get caught into this parent-child relationship where all of a sudden we're apologizing, they become the critical parent, we're the child, and we've got to get it back to an adult-to-adult relationship. Paul, I just want to thank you. You've been a fabulous guest. I really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much for being with us here on A New Direction. And I wish you just the greatest success with the book.
Jay, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed meeting you and really appreciate it.
Well, hang in there with me. Listen, folks, this is the show. You know what? Listen, you are in control of your emotions. You are in control of your attitude, and you are in control of your effort. And those are the two things you can control regardless of your circumstances. So stay in control of them. I'm going to be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book. It's going to be another great show. And as I say in some different language, but this time to my friends in the UK, cheers, everyone.